8. 2-on-1 Southern Brawl. In a disturbing confrontation that was captured on camera in August 2023, an angry man showed up at a home in Mississippi and accused the residents of stealing his side-by-side vehicle. Viral footage showed the man pulling up in his truck and ordering 2 men at the home to return the ATV. One of the residents stood by with a gun as the enraged man exited his vehicle and approached on foot. But as he got closer, another resident struck the man in the head with a wooden plank. 2 women in the background could be heard pleading with everyone involved to stop fighting and yelling for someone to call an ambulance. They also screamed at the unwelcome visitor, whose shirt was covered in blood, to get into his vehicle and leave. But the intruder stood his ground and continued yelling at the 2 men he believed had stolen his ATV, while grabbing his crotch as if doing so somehow emphasized his point. The resident who was holding the gun put the weapon down and picked up a shovel and struck the man twice in the head, causing even more panic from the terrified women as they watched the violence unfold. The unwanted guest could be seen stumbling backwards after being hit in the head, at which point he finally got in his truck and rammed it into a vehicle that was parked in the driveway. Then, in a crippling final blow, the man with the shovel approached the truck and struck his adversary in the head one last time. In the meantime, one of the women ordered him to get into the house so that the enraged visitor wouldn't run him over. The man finally drove off after ramming several objects with his truck. While the dynamics of the situation are unclear, a social media commenter who seemed familiar with the incident stated that the police were investigating the altercation and that nobody stole an ATV from the man who showed up at the house. 7. Redneck Rave gets a little too rowdy. At least 4 dozen people from 5 different states were criminally charged at an out-of-control country music festival in rural Kentucky in 2021. Dubbed the Redneck Rave, the 5-day bash was held at a park in Mammoth Cave, a town that the Lexington Herald leader described as so small it doesn't even have a stoplight. In addition to offering music, the festival, described by event promoters as the biggest country party you'll ever go to, featured a demolition derby, a goldfish race, and a football game. Tens of thousands of people attended the bash, which got off to a bad start when police found meth, marijuana, and an open container of alcohol in the first vehicle they stopped at a traffic checkpoint. And by the time the festival was over, one woman had been strangled unconscious and another person's throat had been sliced open. One man was impaled by a log that broke through the floor of a side-by-side vehicle that he was driving, and as a result he was airlifted to the hospital with the log still inside his body. In addition, another guest lost part of their finger. 14 concert-goers were arrested, and 48 were charged with various crimes, while others remained at large, including the suspect who was accused of cutting their friend's throat. 6 other people were also accused of felonies. It wasn't the first time the Redneck Rave got out of hand, and at least nobody died this time, unlike the year before. Edmonson County Sheriff Shane Doyle told the Herald leader that the festival had become so overwhelming in previous years that he required his staff to work mandatory overtime and requested help from the Kentucky State Police. In his own words, he said that there were so many intoxicated people that law enforcement decided if dispatch sends an ambulance in, we're sending a deputy in with them. 6. Norman Lee Nowling. In early 2012, a 40-year-old Florida man named Norman Lee Nowling took the opportunity to show off in his jacked-up camouflage van, which had 5-foot wheels, during a rally at the Redneck Yacht Club in Punta Gorda. At the crowd's urging, he crushed a teenage girl's unoccupied Toyota Corolla with his much larger 4-wheel drive vehicle. Thousands of people were in the area for the annual Swamp Cabbage Weekend Festival, as mudding enthusiasts flocked to the 800-acre park with their trucks, vans, ATVs, and other vehicles for some rough recreational driving. According to witnesses, Nowling smashed the hood of the car with his front tire, backed up, smashed the hood again with his other tire, and then drove over the entire car at least 3 times. The young woman who owned the Corolla had left the vehicle parked in a field while she went mudding with some friends. She was completely unaware that her car had been crushed until someone told her about it, at which point law enforcement was called to the scene. A security guard told responding deputies that spectators had encouraged Nowling to run the Corolla over, saying that its owner wouldn't care. Authorities charged Nowling with felony criminal mischief, and according to an update from shortly after his arrest, he gave the Toyota owner a $6,500 check so she could buy a new vehicle. Nowling's name remained largely out of the news for the next 10 years until September 2022, when he was arrested in Lee County on suspicion of resisting an officer without violence. Based on his updated mugshot, time hasn't been very kind to this 51-year-old, who looks as though he's aged several decades since his arrest at the Redneck Yacht Club. 5. More trouble at the Redneck Yacht Club. The Redneck Yacht Club in Charlotte County, Florida, first made major news headlines in 2012 when a man was arrested for deliberately crushing a teenage girl's car with his giant, modified van. But more bad press came in May of 2015 when a 20-year-old man named Nicholas Kirk died in an ATV accident at the park during a Memorial Day weekend event. Thousands of visitors were gathered at the property to celebrate the holiday when Kirk tried to pass beneath a tow strap that a swamp buggy was using to pull another swamp buggy. The young man snapped his neck on the rope, fell off his four-wheeler, and was pronounced dead at the scene. A young woman who was riding as Kirk's passenger was also hospitalized with serious injuries. The tragedy sparked outrage from some community members who claimed that the park was dangerous and needed to be shut down. Former employee Dawn Erickson told Wink News that pretty much anything goes inside the property's walls, where she claimed to see women riding around on ATVs with no clothes on and couples fornicating in plain view on top of vehicles. She also said that guests arrived at the venue so intoxicated that she wondered how they managed to drive there. When confronted by Wink News reporters, local zoning and planning official Sean Cullinan said that it's hard to impose new restrictions on a business that's been around for years without risking legal complications. He reportedly admitted that county authorities didn't fully understand what they were getting into when they approved the park's permit. A representative for the business told the news outlet that they'd been working with the Charlotte County Sheriff's Office to improve safety and security at the park, and that they plan to continue doing so. The park appears to still be in operation today, but the place is now called the Redneck Mud Park. 4. Joshua Lee Jolan. Some people think of the word redneck as a derogatory term and a stereotype, while others embrace it as a core part of their identity. A 20-year-old Texas man named Joshua Lee Jolan fell into the latter category following his arrest in Manatee County, Florida in early 2011. Jolan was taken into custody during the early morning hours on suspicion of committing a felonious, lewd, and lascivious act, which of course is no laughing matter. But the internet was in stitches following the Smoking Guns release of the young man's arrest report, which revealed that he had listed redneck as his religion while giving his identifying details to an arresting deputy. About a month earlier, Jolan had been named as a suspect following a drug bust in Montgomery County, Texas. Armed with a search warrant, law enforcement visited a local residence in search of Jolan, who was wanted for unspecified reasons. The homeowner said that Jolan wasn't there and cooperated with deputies, who searched the home and were unable to find the fugitive. Records show that Jolan served a 3.5-year prison sentence for a felony battery conviction in connection with the Florida case. But a more recent mugshot appeared online in June of 2022 when he was apprehended in Montgomery County, Texas on suspicion of criminal trespass. Unfortunately, though, the arresting facility didn't reveal whether he still considers redneck to be his religion of choice. 3. Jeffrey Travis White. When Tracy Lynn Sloan noticed that she was being tailgated by a man in a pickup truck along a Florida highway near Gibsonton in early 2014, she grabbed her phone and began recording the incident. Footage she captured showed the tailgater, later identified as 33-year-old Jeffrey Travis White, passing Sloan and grinning while giving her the middle finger. Just seconds later, the suspect tried to pull in front of Sloan's car, but the road was slick from recent rainfall, causing White to lose control of his truck, veer into the opposite lanes, spin out, and crash into a light pole before landing in a ditch. In the video, Sloan could be heard laughing and saying, "That's what you get, all on video, buddy." White fled the scene, but it was only a matter of time before he'd have to answer for his actions. Sloan turned her recording of the so-called Redneck Road Rage incident over to investigators from the Florida Highway Patrol, who identified White as the suspect. He was arrested 2 days later on charges of leaving the scene of a traffic crash, careless driving, and failing to wear a seatbelt. Speaking with local station WLWT5, Sloan said that she didn't necessarily want to use the term ego, but that she thought White was trying to show off and that his behavior caught up with him. Reporters from the station visited White's residence and knocked on the door, hoping that he'd share his side of the story, but nobody answered. By then, Sloan's clip of the accident had already gone viral, so it's not too surprising that he didn't seem interested in speaking to the media. Sloan said that at some point, a person needs to learn how to curb their out-of-control behavior, and that she hoped the situation would prove to be a growing experience for White. While the outcome of the criminal case is unclear, it's likely safe to assume that the nationwide publicity he received was infinitely more punishing than any consequences that may have been handed down by the law. 2. Jamie Alexander. Along the Black Creek in northeastern Florida, there's an informal gathering spot called Redneck Beach. It reportedly has a reputation for crazy drunken behavior, and in 2017 authorities tried to ban visitors from drinking alcohol. It's unclear whether this rule is still in place, but even if it is, people apparently don't follow it. Shortly before the 4th of July holiday in 2023, an off-duty Jacksonville police officer was arrested for allegedly throwing an unopened can of beer at his girlfriend's face. According to an arrest warrant, the woman's lips were bleeding when Clay County deputies arrived at the scene. The alleged victim told police that she and 41-year-old Jamie Alexander had arrived at Redneck Beach at around 11:30 a.m. The victim said she'd consumed 2 mixed drinks and that Alexander had drunk around 11 beers when she noticed that he seemed to be in a bad mood and wasn't talking to anyone. The woman then accused Alexander of throwing the beer at her face in an unprovoked fashion when she tried asking him why he wasn't socializing. Responding deputies observed blood on the seats of the boat where the altercation happened and on a towel that the victim had been using. Alexander later turned himself in on a misdemeanor battery charge. He was released on his own recognizance and was reassigned to a different job position pending the outcome of the case. In a news release, Alexander's employer, the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, described the incident as a reported physical altercation with a known individual. It was apparently the 3rd time law enforcement in Clay County had dealt with the couple. And now for number 1. But if you want to hear more bizarre and crazy stories, stay tuned after the video for some more content. 1. Grin Wilson. Country singer Grin Wilson skyrocketed to fame in 2004 with her hit song Redneck Woman, which shamelessly boasted about wearing Walmart lingerie and keeping the front porch decorated with Christmas lights year-round. In recent years, however, she's made more news headlines for her rowdy antics than she has for her music. Wilson allegedly lived up to the redneck stereotype in some less than impressive ways beginning in August 2018, when she was involved in what began as a minor disturbance at an airport in Connecticut. Police were called to the scene, and the singer was accused of acting belligerent toward officers when they interviewed her on the tarmac. She was charged with breaching the peace and was released on $1,000 bail. Wilson had another run-in with the police just over a year later in October 2019, when she was kicked out of a hotel in Las Cruces, Mexico at 3 a.m. due to a noise complaint. An employee had dialed 911 and reported that Wilson was shouting in her room. In all fairness, the songstress and her crew left the hotel voluntarily after police came knocking on their door. But A few days later, Wilson bashed the business in a series of tweets, complaining that she waited 2 hours for her breakfast and that she and her team were asked to leave for no reason. She claimed that she wasn't doing anything crazy and was just talking in her hotel room after midnight, when a staff member informed her that quiet hours began at 10 p.m.
Number 8. Kangaroo Punch. 36-year-old zookeeper Greg Tonkins made headlines in December 2016 when a video of him squaring up with a 6.5-foot, 2 meters tall kangaroo went viral. Tonkins punched a marsupial in the face as he attempted to save his dog from the animal, who had the canine in a headlock. His actions divided millions of people, with many praising him for fiercely defending his dog, but animal activists made him out to be a thug for the brazen attack. Tonkins, who works as an elephant keeper at the Taronga Western Plains Zoo in Dubbo, Australia, initially refused to comment on the situation after becoming a viral sensation, but after 2 years, he's broken his silence. He posted an image of himself lying next to a mob of kangaroos with a caption that read, "They love me and I love them." He explained to his followers that he's raised the creatures for years and that he has nothing against them. The whole ordeal happened while Tonkins was on a hunting trip. When his dog got into some trouble with a kangaroo, he was forced to intervene. But after releasing the canine, the kangaroo turned to Tonkins, who had to defend himself. Before the animal could land a blow, Tonkins hit first and landed a punch on the kangaroo's face, which sent it running off. It wasn't for a few months after everything happened that the video was posted online, gaining international attention. Tonkins was condemned for his behavior by PETA, and he started getting threats from individuals claiming to be animal rights activists. And while many people in his position would have shared their side of the story with the press immediately, Tonkins refused to talk to the media. Since the incident, he's pretty much kept to himself on his farm in New South Wales, and he continues to work with elephants while trying to repair his relationship with kangaroos. Number 7. Pacer. The term man's best friend doesn't do dogs justice, at least not for a border collie from Prince George, British Columbia, who helped his owner escape a bear attack in May 2016. A man named Reed Roberts was running along paths outside the University of Northern British Columbia with his dog Pacer when suddenly they met a black bear with her 2 cubs. This was reportedly the duo's second bear sighting in that week alone. The previous Monday, they'd come across a bear on Cranbrook Hill, which is just a short distance away, but luckily Pacer managed to chase it off. But this time, things got a little more complicated. In an interview with CBC News, Roberts said, "She didn't hear us coming and we didn't know she was there." He explained that the mama bear had no choice but to go into attack mode. He stated that he didn't know how he ended up there, but at some point he found himself on the ground with the bear looking on top of him. Roberts started kicking, not knowing what else to do while on his back, which was when his dog Pacer came in. There's research that states dogs can sometimes be a safety hazard in remote regions since they play a role in provoking wild animal attacks. But in this case, Roberts likely wouldn't be alive if his trusted companion hadn't saved him. As he continued his useless defense strategy from the ground, his dog Pacer barked and bit the bear. The little dog may not have been powerful enough to take it down, but he provided a distraction that let Roberts stand up. This sudden movement caused the bear to charge, but luckily Pacer intervened once again. The canine bit at the bear and showed its teeth some more, leading the wild animal and its 2 cubs away from Roberts, who was bleeding from his hand. The bear took off after Pacer, but Roberts knew the little dog could easily outrun her. With the dangerous creature out of sight, he called 911. As he stood in a parking lot waiting for paramedics to arrive, his friend called him saying that Pacer had shown up at his door about a mile, 2 kilometers away. Amazingly, the canine made it out of the ordeal while saving his owner's life. Roberts, on the other hand, had to get 16 stitches on his left hand. Luckily, the rest of the man's injuries were just minor cuts and bruises, which weren't too serious. Roberts now refers to Pacer as his hero and his best friend. Number 6. Raccoon in a headlock. In 2021, a woman from Massachusetts was trying to hang up her outdoor Christmas lights when she was attacked by a raccoon. 70-year-old Donna Sanguinario shared a post to her Facebook page explaining the whole incident. She said she'd heard a strange noise coming from the street behind her on December 1st, and when she turned around to see what it was, she saw a huge raccoon sitting only 10 feet, 3 meters away from her. Then, before she could do anything, the creature jumped towards her. Donna ended the post by saying, "Worst nightmare of my life." Apparently, both her and the raccoon were screaming during the attack, which drowned out her own cries for help. At one point, the animal fell off of her arm, but immediately latched back onto it in order to continue the assault. After falling, Donna managed to get the raccoon in a headlock, and she refused to let go of it. She might have squeezed just a little too hard though, because in her own defense she ended up breaking some bones in the critter's neck. But luckily, for all you animal lovers out there, the raccoon was alive and walked away after Donna released it. The 70-year-old was left with several bloody injuries. She told her local news station WHDH that she had broken ribs and that she'd also have to get a series of shots, including a tetanus shot, on the off chance the raccoon was rabid. Donna told the media that she eventually put up her Christmas lights and that she'll be prepared for any other wild raccoons the next time she's in her front yard. Number 5. Later Gator. In 2021, a children's party in West Valley City, Utah went horribly wrong when an alligator handler was pulled into a water tank right in front of several kids. Footage of the incident was captured by Teresa Wiseman, who brought her child to the party. The video shows a female alligator instructor at Scales and Tails, an entertainment and educational company, attempting to guide an alligator into the water tank after making its way onto a platform. The handler then signals a command, which should have told the alligator to head back into the water. But as a group of kids attending the event watched from behind the glass, the alligator instead grabbed the instructor's hand and pulled her into the tank. With the woman in its jaws, the gator twisted and thrashed deeper into the water. The husband of the woman who filmed the incident, Donnie Wiseman, and another guest, Todd Christopher, then jumped in to help wrestle the instructor out of the alligator's mouth. Donnie jumped on the creature's back as he attempted to subdue the gator as Todd worked to open its jaws. Just a few moments later, the animal released the handler's hand, who immediately jumped to safety. After saving the instructor, Donnie found himself in a dangerous situation as he was literally on the back of a gator. Luckily though, he managed to jump off safely. Both guests and the instructor made it back behind the glass with their lives, but the children in the audience will probably be scarred for life. The handler was given medical assistance by a nurse attending the party until emergency services arrived. She underwent surgery to repair her hand, but was expected to recover fully. Number 4. Chicken Dinner. In early 2023, a little girl from Mississippi was attacked by one of her family's chickens, and her mother's response had people clucking with disapproval. In a Facebook post that's since gone viral, Megan Schmidt explained that her family cooked and ate their pet rooster named Hey Hey after he'd assaulted her young daughter. Even though she deleted the original post from her social media account, several pictures of her daughter covered in bloody pecks from the chicken surfaced on Megan's fan page. The post from January 12th amassed over 16,000 comments and 56,000 shares in just a short period of time. It included images of the girl standing next to the bird before the incident happened. The post also showed pictures of the family eating chicken nuggets that were presumably made from Hey Hey. In the caption, Megan wrote, "We were so lucky that he didn't do any more damage than he did. Half an inch and she would have lost an eye." She was referencing the scratches the child received on her face as a result of the chicken attack, which were near her right eye. She ended the post by saying, "Hey Hey nuggets for dinner," which left the comment section divided as to whether or not the rooster deserved death. As a consequence of her actions, Megan was slammed for her parenting skills by Facebook users who couldn't believe she'd brag about killing an animal online. One commenter asked her, "Why even have a rooster if you're not going to watch your kid around it?" In the end, people are entitled to do what they want with their animals, but people are also entitled to express their own opinions. Number 3. Wild Boar. In February 2023, a wild boar crashed into a popular ski resort in Miyako City, Japan, before attacking 2 snowboarders. This was the first incident of its kind to happen at the Alpenblick snow resort. In a video taken by a witness, a wild boar can be seen plowing into a pair of snowboarders at the bottom of a slope. In the wake of the attack, resort visitors were urged to take caution as they weren't sure what had caused the boar to lash out. In one clip, a man can be seen coming to a stop at the end of a slope, seemingly unaware of what's coming next. Just seconds later, the boar bolts down the mountain and rams right into him, who was understandably taken by surprise. The man falls to the ground, and the boar keeps him there as it continues to headbutt him. The snowboarder then tries to use his board to protect himself as shocked bystanders run away. After a while, the boar darts off and chooses a second victim, another snowboarder. The individual defended themselves with their board too, until the animal was finally scared off by the sound of the snowmobile siren, which was set off by resort staff. It's unclear where the boar came from and where it went. The resort's manager, Hazawa Kazuhiko, told news station NHK that he'd never seen anything like it before, but that he'd increase patrols and take other precautions to avoid a similar incident in the future. Number 2. Rabid Fox. Sherry Russo, a retired nurse from New York, received 16 injuries after being attacked by a rabid fox on July 25, 2022. The 61-year-old told Fox News that she originally thought the fox in her front yard was her neighbor's dog, so she didn't pay that much attention to it. But then the animal nipped at her leg, which is when she realized it was actually a wild animal attacking her. Sherry said he was a little guy, but he was just relentless. She explained to the news channel that he kept coming back and that every time he did, she lost confidence in her ability to ward the fox off. Sherry threw the fox to the ground multiple times, but it kept jumping up at her and biting her. At one point, she attempted to grab him and pull him off her leg, but that's when the animal chomped down between her thumb and forefinger, leaving her hand incredibly swollen. Thankfully, her neighbor noticed what was happening and came out with a stick to scare the fox away, which seemed to do the trick. Sherry was so grateful that her neighbor intervened and said it would have been easy for him to pretend like he didn't hear anything instead. But thanks to his kind deed, Sherry escaped the encounter with less injuries than she would have if he hadn't helped her out. Number 1. Arthur saves the day. In February 2021, Australia's Animal Emergency Service made a post on Facebook praising a domestic short-hair cat for sacrificing his life to save his family's 2 young children from a deadly snake. Arthur the cat was following his little humans around a family's yard when out of nowhere a venomous eastern brown snake popped up in the grass, slithering towards the youngsters. With barely a second's notice, the feline jumped into action. Before the snake could lunge at either of the young children, Arthur intervened and killed it. But sadly, in the process of saving his family, he sustained a fatal bite from the creature. Arthur collapsed immediately after getting the bite, but he managed to regain consciousness pretty quickly. But the next day he collapsed again and was unable to wake up. The post from the Animal Emergency Service called Arthur a 4-legged hero, and that's exactly what he was. It's unfortunate that he didn't survive, but who knows what would have happened if either of his humans had been bit instead. This story just goes to show that it's not just dogs that are man's best friend, it's cats and other pets too.
Would you rather attend the Redneck Rave Music Festival in Kentucky or spend a weekend at the Redneck Yacht Club in Florida? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.